The story kicks off 200 years from now, in an Eastern European nation that's completely wrecked and in ruins. Amidst the rubble, a guy in pretty bad shape sits there, tightly gripping his piece. Losing a lot of color due to some serious wounds, he's having a really hard time keeping his hands steady. A little girl hugging a stuffed bunny comes over and begs the guy not to pass away. In response, he tells her to make a run for it. Frozen by the intense fear of the whole situation, the girl hesitates and stays glued to the spot. Totally out of patience, the marksman orders her to leave the area right that second, warning her that sticking around means it's game over for her too. Spooked by the yelling, the kid turns around and starts booking it. She keeps running desperately, trying to get as far away from that danger as possible. While the little girl dashes through the alleys, the injured man stays leaning against the ruined wall. Suddenly, he notices someone approaching and turns his head, on high alert. The quiet vibe is completely shattered by the echo of heavy footsteps. A guy wearing an overcoat is casually strolling right toward him. Flanked by backup, the silver-haired dude steps up, accompanied by a bunch of armed guards. Recognizing his target, the boss addresses the marksman as Nightshade. With a hint of admiration, he notes that his enemy really lives up to the hype of being an absolute beast. Looking around, the silver-haired guy is genuinely impressed that the marksman caused all this destruction completely solo. The surrounding area is littered with the fallen bodies of guards who didn't make it out of the brawl. In the background, buildings are still burning, showing just how wildly the city got wrecked. The rival tells Nightshade that a guy with his skill set would never choose to clock out just out of pure sentimentality. Getting his piece ready, the boss asks if the defeated guy has any final words to drop. Covered in a mess, the marksman just gives him a totally mocking glare. Head held high and giving a thumbs down, our MC accepts his own final curtain call. Without missing a beat, he warns the guy that they'll definitely be catching up in the underworld. A loud bang echoes through the alley, painting the scene completely red. In a hideout 17 years later, a guy is throwing an absolute fit, feeling like he's being played for a fool. A big, bald dude asks if the kid seriously thinks he can just back out of the gig right now. Backed into a corner, the kid tries to explain himself, swearing up and down that he only signed up for a driving job. Taking a drag from his smoke, another crook confirms that the gig is exactly driving and asks what the big deal is. In a total panic, the kid insists that this isn't exactly your average Uber run. Tearing up, he angrily yells about how he's supposed to be the getaway driver for a professional cleaner right in the middle of a hot zone. Annoyed by all the whining, the bald guy smashes a golf club hard into the floor, snapping it in half. The crooks make it crystal clear, they are transporters and if the price is right, they move any kind of cargo. Gripping a blade, the heavy warns that he's gonna have to permanently silence the kid if he doesn't zip it. The threat is cut short when someone firmly grabs the armed guy's shoulder. Caught totally off guard by the interruption, the crook turns his head, looking completely confused. A guy in a baseball cap tells everyone to chill and offers to take the wheel himself. Held back by the big guy, the terrified kid begs his buddy K not to get tangled up in this mess. K calms his partner down, reassuring him that a top-tier pro wouldn't just go around eliminating random people for no good reason. The massive city and its huge, lit-up skyscrapers are swallowed by the night. A syndicate boss gets a one-way ticket to the afterlife right in the middle of a fancy hallway. Freaking out and screaming about an ambush, the bodyguards pull out their hardware. Another guard tries to shield the boss but catches a projectile squarely in the forehead. The rest of the crew is absolutely dumbfounded watching their buddies drop so fast. Unable to believe his eyes, one of the guys in a suit notices the holes in the wooden door right behind him. Full of dread, he realizes the wall wasn't thick enough to stop heavy-duty ammo. The dude in the overcoat kicks the door wide open like a boss, storming into the office. Holding a suppressed piece, the silver-haired specialist steps into the room looking like an absolute menace. Right away, the mob boss yells at his crew not to underestimate the intruder. To dodge the lead shower, the marksman flips up a round table for cover. Trying to nail the target, the bodyguards fire away in pure desperation. Using the cover like a pro, the cleaner fires back with pinpoint accuracy, taking out two guards at the exact same time. Another goon bites the dust, leaving the last guy standing totally clueless about how the enemy can even aim. Pointing his piece at the victim, the silver-haired guy jokes that the rotten smell of a mobster is way too easy to track down. With the gig wrapped up, the specialist calmly holsters his hardware right in the middle of the wrecked room. He reloads his piece using fresh clips he left chilling inside an ice bucket. The office floor is basically swimming in a crimson sea of fallen guys. At the door, the driver K shows up, taking in the aftermath of the massive sweep. Spooked, the kid throws his hands in the air, instantly surrendering when the silver-haired guy points his piece at him. Shaking like a leaf, K tries to explain that he was only hired to handle the ride. The marksman lowers his guard and asks if he's the driver his partner sent over. Super relieved he didn't just get blasted, the kid tips his cap and confirms the job. The two of them hit the road, cruising down the city's massive avenue in the dead of night. Bathed in moonlight, the car speeds through the empty streets. While the passenger kicks back in the rear, Kay keeps his eyes peeled on the road. The driver sneaks a curious glance at the marksman through the rearview mirror. Catching the stare, the guy asks what the problem is, which immediately makes the kid tense up. Trying to play it cool, Kay mentions that a genuine pro just has this crazy, intimidating vibe. Ignoring the comment, the cleaner goes back to staring at the front seat, looking bored out of his mind. With a bit of hesitation, the driver asks if he can clear up a tiny little question about the gig. Met with silence from the passenger, Kay mentions that he walked past the first floor when he entered the building. Bringing up the fallen bodies on the ground, he asks if women and kids were also supposed to be targets on this run. The silver-haired guy says nope, but casually admits he took them out anyway just to keep things quiet. Kay is totally stunned hearing that the cleanup crew would handle the mess, so bumping off a few extras was no big deal. Gulping hard, the driver lets out a nervous chuckle, realizing his passenger is way more ruthless than the rumors let on. Mentally calling the guy by the alias Funeral Flowers, Kay is convinced he's sitting next to an absolute monster. Keeping the chat going, Kay asks how the marksman knows that name, adding that he heard it from their boss. In the Western underworld, top-tier fixers get flower code names, and having the funeral flowers sent after you is basically a guaranteed game over. Annoyed by the interrogation, the silver-haired guy mutters that the kid really shouldn't be poking his nose into off-limits gossip. But the kid pushes his luck, hinting that the scar on the passenger's face was probably the work of a blade or something similar. The marksman just listens quietly, taking note of the driver's sheer audacity. Sounding thoughtful, the kid points out that there must be someone out there tough enough to actually scratch one of the legendary funeral flowers. In the back seat, the cleaner stays silent, just soaking in what the kid is saying. Kay's eyes get a whole lot darker in the rearview mirror as he stays laser-focused on the highway. Touching his own scar, the silver-haired guy remembers a dude who used to go by the name Belladonna. That plant is also known as nightshade, and it packs a seriously heavy neurotoxin in its system. In flower lingo, it translates to a gift of the end, and that guy was an absolute unit who could only be described as a grim reaper. He thinks about how the guy was foolish enough to go against the entire organization's rules just for the sake of a kid. Because of that, his former rival ended up taking a permanent nap in the middle of that creepy alley. Snapping back to the present, Kay smirks and drops the bomb that the silver-haired guy actually took out the Reaper with his own two hands. Officially out of patience, the marksman points his piece right at the driver and asks if that little story is enough for his tombstone. Faking a panic attack, the kid starts sweating bullets and asks what on earth the passenger is talking about. Without an ounce of mercy, the silver-haired guy clicks the safety off, fully ready to blow the kid's mind literally. The cleaner actually compliments his driving skills, saying that the maneuver to dodge the ambush was way too slick for some random low-level goon. On top of that, he points out that the driver isn't actually scared, because people who are genuinely panicking sweat in a very specific way. The marksman breaks it down, that kind of fear sweat smells absolutely foul. Since he's not catching that nasty scent from the front seat, he figures the kid is totally chilled out, even staring down the barrel of a piece. Gripping his hardware tighter, the mobster demands to know the kid's real identity. Taking his shot, Kay suddenly yanks the steering wheel with everything he's got. Caught totally off guard by the wild swerve, the silver-haired guy completely loses his balance in the back. Out on the road, the car violently swerves, drifting across the asphalt at breakneck speed. Moving fast, the driver slams on the brakes, locking up the wheels. While the ride spins totally out of control, the cleaner screams his lungs out, asking what the heck this lunatic is doing. Through the rearview mirror, the kid flashes a dark, super-focused glare right in the middle of the chaotic crash. The silver-haired guy's eyes go wide, realizing there is absolutely no way out of this collision. With an ear-splitting crunch, the car violently slams right into the metal guardrail. Thanks to the massive impact, the marksman is literally launched out of the flipping car. Sliding across the pavement, he somehow manages to catch his balance and lands in a crouch. Boiling with rage over the trap, the silver-haired guy looks up, locking eyes with his new problem. Cutting through the smoke from the wreck, Kay leaps right at him, launching a lightning-fast assault. The kid's eyes are glowing a fierce red as he grips a blade, totally locking into an unstoppable predator stance. Moving fast, the mobster raises his heavy piece to blast the attacker right out of the sky. Right before he can pull the trigger, a super-fast slash cuts through the air. With pinpoint accuracy, the driver smacks the side of the hardware, throwing the aim way off. Annoyed by the strike, the cleaner clicks his tongue and jumps back so he doesn't get sliced and diced. The metal frame of the piece ends up taking the full force of the sword. Chunks of the hardware start hitting the deck, leaving the silver-haired guy completely dumbfounded by the damage. Standing there cool as a cucumber, Kay drops some knowledge. The Desert Eagle is actually pretty fragile and the side of it hates taking a beating. The kid adds that it's the absolute perfect spot to make the whole thing jam up. The mobster realizes his opponent targeted the piece's mechanism with crazy precision in literally a fraction of a second. Stripped of his main toy, the silver-haired guy grinds his teeth, absolutely seething over the whole situation. Yelling at the kid to wipe that smirk off his face, the cleaner charges hard, tossing his busted hardware to act as a distraction. Whipping a curved blade out of his sleeve, the silver-haired guy sets up a nasty close-quarters attack. Keeping his cool, Kay just uses his bare hands to block the incoming stab like it's nothing. They lock into this crazy intense hand-to-hand brawl, with the kid effortlessly deflecting every single rapid-fire strike. The mobster feels a sudden jolt in his arm and realizes, with pure dread, that his nerves just got totally wrecked. Seizing the opening, our MC delivers a brutal straight punch right to the guy's face. Keeping the combo going, he viciously targets the enemy's neck area. Not giving him a single second to breathe, the kid steps in and blasts the silver-haired guy in the gut with a savage knee. To wrap things up, Kay brings his fist down with max power, slamming the mobster straight into the highway pavement. Coughing up a whole lot of red, the defeated guy realizes that wasn't just your standard beatdown. He notices, absolutely horrified, that with every hit he took, his nervous system was slowly getting fried. The destructive toll on his body is a dead ringer for the famous belladonna toxin. Our MC glares down at his wrecked opponent, giving off this super dark, demonic vibe right under the moonlight. Even while eating dirt, the cleaner gets sarcastic, calling the kid a weird smell fetishist and demanding to know who he really is. Suddenly, the silver-haired guy's eyes bug out as he connects the dots and remembers that old cursed codename. Our MC smirks, asking if it finally clicked, pointing out that it definitely took him long enough. Sweating bullets from pure anxiety, the silver-haired guy whispers in total disbelief that it's completely impossible. Flashing a wicked grin, Kay fires back, saying the cleaner sure talks a big game for someone who acted like a total coward. He brings up how his old rival only popped up to land the final blow when he was already fading out in that alley. The mobster insists it's garbage and that the Reaper definitely bought the farm back there, but the kid calmly agrees that yeah, he actually did. With his eyes glowing super bright, he drops the news that, for some crazy reason, he just booted right back up into the land of the living. The defeated dude is absolutely floored hearing this wild respawn story. Staring at his dropped blade on the asphalt, the silver-haired guy refuses to buy into something so totally unhinged. Walking super slow, our MC casually strolls over to the dropped hardware. With a slick little kick, he pops the blade up into the air and catches it effortlessly with one hand. The cleaner asks if this whole insane setup is just about payback, and Kay answers that honestly, it doesn't sound like a bad idea. Right then, the memory of that lost little girl's stuffed bunny flashes through his mind. Rocking an icy, dead-set expression, the kid admits there's actually something specific he needs to get back. To pull that off, he announces he's gonna burn the organization's massive garden straight to the ground. Losing his mind, the silver-haired guy screams that wiping out the whole syndicate is a pipe dream he'll never pull off. Kay casually mentions that nowadays there are way more funeral flowers around, and some are even tougher than he ever was. Catching a blade to the throat, the mobster tries to warn him that he won't be able to change a single thing all by his lonesome. Ignoring the heads-up, our MC finishes the job, taking the guy's head clean off and painting the highway red. As the lifeless silver-haired dude hits the deck, the dust and the mess finally settle on the busted asphalt. Staring down at the body, he tells the scumbag to enjoy the fireworks show from the front row in the underworld. Somewhere else, inside a super fancy boardroom, a bunch of big shots are chilling around a massive table. A sharply dressed boss kicks back in his chair, calmly calling out for someone named Dahlia. With a super chill voice, he drops the news that their buddy just got permanently checked out. Hearing that, the blonde woman stays dead silent, letting the heavy news sink in. Turning his head, the boss asks if she has any idea who might be behind the hit. He points out that the guy who bit the dust was the exact same dude who took out her mentor back during the old Civil War days. Hearing that, the woman gets a flashback to her own dark past living in the rubble. Trying to piece it together, the boss wonders if the Japanese cops pulled this off, or if the US decided to crash the party. Looking thoughtful, he also throws out the idea that it could have been some random wild card altogether. Drumming his fingers on the table, the guy concludes that things in their shiny new Japanese garden are getting pretty complicated. The boss announces that some seriously annoying weeds have started popping up on their turf. To clean up the mess, he orders Dahlia to hit up the funeral flowers and have them rip this problem out by the roots. Walking down a busy street, the guy sets a strict deadline. The job needs to be wrapped up in exactly 1 month. Meanwhile, Kay is zoning out, thinking about how he spent his whole life stuck in the middle of a bombed-out war zone. All alone in the ruins, the kid remembers that he never even got the chance to meet his real folks. He was just your standard war orphan, with zero shot at a real future. But everything flipped when this mysterious dude practically spawned out of the smoke. Packing some serious heat, the guy in the suit told the kid to choose. Either kick the bucket right there like a stray dog, or grab the piece and start catching bodies to stay alive. Not really grasping just how heavy that choice was, the little kid just grabbed the massive hardware. Racking the slide like he meant it, Kay made the call that he was going to keep on breathing. Without missing a beat, he pulled the trigger, blasting the target without a second thought. During boot camp, the instructor would scream at him to never hesitate, warning him that screwing up meant an instant game over. Sprinting through the firing range, the kid kept hearing orders barking at him to literally never stop moving. Amidst all the flying lead, the young guy figured out that the Funeral Flowers crew wasn't just your run-of-the-mill mob. They fully bought into this grand, noble mission of keeping world order intact, no matter the cost. The Syndicate kept tabs on the whole globe, quietly deleting threats from the shadows. Their absolute top priority targets were the dictators trying to rot the world from the inside out. Heavy-hitting cartel bosses and dangerous extremists also made the permanent ban list. Basically, taking these people out stopped full-blown wars and acted as a necessary evil to keep thousands of regular folks breathing. Our MC always handled his gigs super fast and with deadly precision. Functioning like an absolute Terminator, he just followed orders to support that supposedly noble cause. In a sketchy alley, the marksman remembers the exact moment his life started going downhill, back when some goons were hunting down a rat. Panting and roughed up, our MC was just trying to stay on his feet in the pitch black. The little girl notices her hero is sweating bullets, while he's busy realizing he just betrayed his own crew after 20 solid years. Kay figures out he inhaled some nasty nerve gas and his system is shutting down. He knows he's not going to last much longer. With his hands shaking completely out of control, the cleaner makes peace with the fact that his timer is almost up. Handing an envelope over to the kid, he tells her to head to a safe spot where a transporter will scoop her up. He tells her she has to bounce on her own and start fresh, while internally asking himself why he pulled such a crazy stunt. Gripping the paper super tight, the kid just stays quiet, trying to process the heavy goodbye. Overwhelmed by the whole thing, the girl crushes the envelope in her hand, looking completely frustrated. Tugging hard on the marksman's coat, she makes it crystal clear that there is zero chance she's leaving without him. Looking fierce as ever, the kid demands to know exactly what she has to do to keep him breathing. Seeing the kid act so gutsy, Kay realizes it was that exact, totally random move. That stubborn attitude was the wrench that finally broke the perfect machine of his life. A bit later, the sun comes up, shining on a tiny, busted-up building out in the middle of nowhere. Chilling on the floor surrounded by empty tiny bottles, our MC gets his second wind thanks to some atropine sulfate. This specific antitoxin could only be scavenged in super tiny drops from regular over-the-counter eye drops. Opening his eyes, he realizes he was practically at 0 HP, and there was no way he could have looted that many bottles all by himself. Looking totally relieved to see his color coming back, the little girl comes sprinting into the hideout. Checking out her muddy sneakers, the cleaner figures out the kid literally risked it all sneaking past the bad guys. Trying to cool her hero's nerves, the girl swears that there's nobody left patrolling outside. Mind blown by what she pulled off, Kay asks if she doesn't regret blowing her one free ticket to escape. Not scared in the slightest, she straight up refuses to run solo and demands that he stays on as her personal bodyguard from now on. Feeling super awkward about the request, the guy repeats that he's just a trigger puller and definitely not dad material for anyone. Bummed out by the rejection, the girl looks super sad, while he thinks to himself that his past self would never have greenlit this. But resting his hand on her head, Kay admits there's no way he could live with himself owing his life to a little kid. Looking the girl right in the eye, the marksman decides to shake on one final deal. He promises he'll watch her back until she secures her own freedom, officially signaling his retirement from the shadow games. Super hyped, the kid happily accepts the very first real promise she's ever made. All of a sudden, the bedroom door gets kicked wide open, and a girl yells at her absolute idiot of a brother to wake up. Thanks to the jump scare, our MC straight up launches out of bed and hits the floor hard. Rubbing his head, he mumbles sleepily, remembering that it's been 17 years since he actually flatlined. The young girl Misaki shouts that he's gonna be late for high school, dragging Kay right back to his current bizarre reality. Complaining about how impossible he is to wake up, she waits impatiently while the kid promises he'll get ready in a flash. Standing up, our MC thinks about how wildly weird it is to just be living as a regular high schooler now. Squinting at her brother, Misaki casually drops that he's been acting super sketchy lately. She brings up that he rolled in super late last night and his clothes smelled heavily like a bonfire. Sweating bullets, Kay silently remembers that he literally had to torch that flipped car to scrub the evidence. Using her best scary voice, the girl asks if he's somehow getting mixed up with shady crowds again. Trying to play it off, Kay awkwardly laughs and makes up a story about just hanging at a buddy's barbecue until late. The girl thinks that's highly suspicious since he used to absolutely hate veggies, but he covers by saying his taste buds flipped after he bumped his head. In his head, he nerds out for a second, figuring the brain's reward center must have gotten slightly rewired, changing his food preferences. The siblings just stand there in awkward silence for a hot second. Brushing it off, Misaki tells him to throw some clothes on and get downstairs, warning him that Mom says breakfast is getting cold. The second the door clicks shut, Kay lets out a massive sigh of relief, muttering to himself about how his sister is way too observant. Pacing around the room, he figures that, so far at least, he's managed to fake a perfectly average daily routine. Glancing at a family photo on the desk, the kid admits that honestly this whole setup still feels like a fever dream. The young guy wonders why his consciousness, which checked out 17 years ago, decided to hit continue inside this specific body. He gently taps the picture of his brand new family sitting on the dresser. Kay is 100% sure he didn't body snatch the guy, since the original owner's memories and feelings are still chilling in his head. Thinking back to the glitch that started it all, he knows he took a tumble down the stairs 10 days ago, but everything right before and after is totally blank. He wonders if taking a hit to the dome is what rebooted his past life save file, thinking the whole thing is basically an insult to science. Suddenly, a ping from his PC grabs the kid's attention. Sliding into the desk chair, Kay decides to put the reincarnation puzzle on pause since he's got bigger fish to fry right now. Rocking a dead serious look, he settles in, staring hard at the monitor. Throwing on his headset, the kid hears a voice confirming that the file scan is totally done. On the other end of the line, a mysterious contact complains that cracking that encryption was an absolute nightmare. Playing it cool, Kay mentions that it was the data chip he swiped off Dahlia. The scene flashes back to the moment the marksman wiped the floor with those targets in the fancy office. Next to the messy VIP, the fallen mobster's hand was still clutching an old-school pocket watch. The silver trinket was actually hiding a super important secret right inside its casing. Once popped open, the watch revealed a tiny little data chip tucked into the gears. Sounding smug, our MC praises his hacker buddy's speed, noting it was definitely worth tapping into his old network. The ally admits he practically had a heart attack getting a ping from him last week, considering he'd been off the grid for over 10 years. He confesses he wasn't sure if he was actually chatting with the legendary Nightshade, but once Dahlia bit the dust, he knew it was legit. Zero patience for the small talk, the kid demands the analysis breakdown before he answers any questions. The contact reminds him that 17 years ago, the cleaner ignored a direct order to wipe out a family and supposedly got permanently deleted because of it. Super curious, the ally really wants to know how someone like him is still breathing, and why he's picking a fight with the syndicate all over again. Cutting right to the chase, he asks if this whole revenge tour is because of that girl named Lilia. A quick flashback shows little Lilia getting dragged away by a suit, dropping her bunny after her hero supposedly took his final nap. The ally explains that the big garden scooped the kid up to use her as a shiny political pawn. For the last 17 years, she's been locked up like a bird in a cage, basically playing the role of their poster child. Stripped of any real freedom, she just exists stuck behind the curtain of that seriously messed up world. The contact spills the tea that rumor has it the poor girl gets treated like absolute garbage by the guild's bigwigs. Bringing up the old days, the ally asks if the whole point of this rampage is to bust the girl out of the garden's grip. Hearing the rundown, Kay's eyes go a shade darker through the glow of the screen. The memory of that tiny girl smiling like crazy over a plain piece of bread flashes in his mind again. Ice cold, our MC warns the hacker that he really doesn't need to understand the motives of a walking weapon like him. Shutting down the gossip, he reminds the guy that the golden rule in their line of work is to never ask stupid questions. The mystery guy goes radio silent for a sec, just swallowing the harsh shutdown. Clicking his mouse, the hacker just sighs and mutters that the cleaner is as much of a stubborn mule as ever. A notification sound pops up, signaling that the file transfer is finally wrapped. The screen pulls up a photo of a dark-haired schoolgirl looking completely unbothered. All business, Kay scans the data and gets the name of the next target Dahlia was gearing up to erase. The next day, things are buzzing as usual at a super elite girls' academy. Students are strolling casually through the front gates, chatting and laughing it up. The girl from the file is walking solo across the courtyard, turning heads left and right. A few classmates wave super enthusiastically, saying bye and calling her Shido. Turning her head with pure elegance, she wishes them all a good morning with a tiny, polite smile. The second she turns around, the group of girls practically swoons, totally obsessed with her vibe. The students are whispering in the corners, just completely starstruck by how pretty she is. Keeping his distance, Kei is tracking the whole scene through his phone, blending in with a plain baseball cap. His screen shows her complete profile, confirming that she is 100% Akari Shido. The file breaks down that this high schooler is the sole heir to the absolute biggest Yakuza crew in all of Japan. Our MC runs the numbers, confirming that this mafia princess is the main prize the garden wants to wipe off the map. Looking a bit stressed, he realizes that right now, he's literally just a high schooler picking a fight with a massive global syndicate of hitmen. This rival group has an insane amount of pull when it comes to the politics and cash flow of dozens of countries. On top of that, the guild has a whole roster of fixers whose skills are basically borderline supernatural. Staring at the girl's photo, Kei knows darn well he can't just run up on these monsters without some serious backup. To pull off his master plan, he figures he's gonna use this mob heiress's massive target on her back to score an advantage. Flashing a scary glare, our MC decides to use this setup as the perfect launchpad to burn the garden straight to the ground. Playing it smart, Kei tails the girl from a safe distance as she walks through the quiet suburban neighborhood. It doesn't take long for the kid to spot a heavy in a suit sticking to the girl like glue. From his hiding spot, he jokes to himself that playing babysitter for a Yakuza boss's kid every single day must be a total drag. In a dead-end alley, the bodyguard blocks the path, and Kei greets him with a healthy dose of sarcasm. Cracking his knuckles, the suit complains about the annoying flies buzzing around the boss and warns the kid that he's playing in the wrong sandbox. The guy looks at the teenager like he's trash, calling him a punk who's probably never even held a real piece. Smiling like an absolute menace, our MC thanks him for the super friendly life advice. The two of them have a standoff right in the street, and the vibe gets instantly heavy. Not backing down an inch, Kei announces he's about to make his grand comeback tour in this brutal underground scene. The bodyguard drops into a fighting stance, demanding to know who the punk works for and why he's creeping on the young miss. Totally unbothered, the kid raises his fists and points out he wasn't exactly hunting the girl down. Furious at the slick answer, the suit growls that he doesn't need the kid to confess voluntarily, because he's about to beat it out of him. Seizing the tiny window, Kei throws an absolutely savage hook right at the guy's jaw, sending him flying before he can even blink. Sizing up the guy's stance, Kei instantly clocks that the suit is a trained boxer. Seeing red after getting tagged, the bodyguard charges forward, screaming and throwing all his weight into a nasty payback strike. He's throwing insults the whole time he closes the gap, loading up a massive haymaker. The suit unleashes a lightning-fast punch, but our MC just slips right past it like it's in slow motion. Taking advantage of the totally blown strike, the kid grabs the guy's wrist with a crazy iron grip. Not giving him a millisecond to block, Kei yanks the guard's arm, completely wrecking his balance. Totally bewildered, the big guy realizes way too late that he just got played. In a blur, our MC lands a perfect surgical strike right to the enemy's neck. The hit is so brutal that the guard crashes to the alley floor, groaning in pure misery. Looking down at the wrecked suit, the kid tells him to chill out and calmly explains that he's not the bad guy here. Still seeing stars on the pavement, the suit stays quiet, trying to process how he just got folded so fast. Suddenly, Akari shows up at the end of the street, yelling at them to cut the tough guy act right now. Seeing the girl walk up, the grounded bodyguard mutters her title, looking absolutely mortified. She marches right up to the two of them in the middle of the alley without even a hint of fear. Staring holes into the kid, Akari admits she has no clue who he is, but commands him to let Katajiri go this instant. Impressed by her guts, Kei thinks to himself that this mob princess actually has some serious spine. He agrees to let the guy up, but only if the schoolgirl sits down and listens to his pitch. Still pinning the heavy to the ground, the kid casually asks her out for tea, which makes the bodyguard absolutely lose his mind over the disrespect. Keeping her cool despite the crazy tension, the girl closes her eyes and thinks it over for a split second. Turning her back, she just tells our MC to follow her and keep his mouth shut. A few minutes later, the squad peacefully rolls up to a way quieter, empty street. They duck into a super low-key cafe tucked right on the corner. Once they sit down, Kei compliments the joint, though he points out it doesn't really scream billionaire mob heiress. Totally ignoring her bodyguard who looks like he's about to explode, Akari tells the kid to skip the intro and get to the point. Looking classy as ever, the student picks up the teacup that just hit the table. Taking a sip, she flat out says she knows he's only sitting there because he wants something specific. Dropping the joke voice, our MC gets serious and reveals his actual target is the hitman currently gunning for her. As the silence gets super thick, Kay asks if they've already figured out why there's a massive bullseye on their backs. He points out she wouldn't be walking around with a human tank for a guard if she didn't know things were bad. But the kid drops the bomb that her muscle over there is never going to stop the Chowka crew, leaving Akari looking stunned. Our MC spells it out. These guys are elite fixers, and an entire army of Yakuza goons wouldn't even leave a scratch on them. Shocked by the reality check, the girl stares at the teenager, trying to wrap her head around the nightmare. She leans in over the table and demands to know who he really is and how he knows all this top-secret intel. Totally unfazed by the mafia princess trying to stare him down, the kid keeps a perfectly blank poker face. Leaning back in his chair, Kay clarifies he's not exactly her bestie, but he is definitely an enemy of her enemies. The kid offers to wipe the Chowka crew off the map, asking only for a free place to crash at her mansion for a bit. Boiling over with rage at the absolute disrespect, Katajiri slams the table and jumps up to chew the kid out. Flashing a completely terrifying glare, our MC Ice Cold warns the bodyguard not to do anything stupid. An overwhelming, suffocating killer vibe radiates off Kay, freezing the big guy in his tracks instantly. Sweating absolute buckets, the bodyguard shuts his mouth, suddenly realizing the insane power gap between them. Unable to keep up the tough guy act, the dude slowly slumps back into his chair, totally defeated. Taking in the crazy tension, Akari asks why she should trust a single word coming out of his mouth. Right on cue, the kid brings up the massive, bloody shootout that just went down over in Yokohama. He reveals that the Chowka crew were the ones who wiped out 3 Yakuza bosses and all their muscle. Katajiri starts full-on panicking, because that specific bloodbath hadn't even leaked to the news yet. Adjusting his cap, Kay figures the media got paid off to stay quiet, and casually nails the detail that the victims got shredded by heavy-caliber hardware. He explains that the guy who threw that party was a rival hitman who goes by the name Dahlia. Totally mind-blown, the bodyguard yells, demanding to know how a random kid got his hands on highly classified mob secrets. Skipping the dramatic pause, our MC slides a suppressed piece onto the table, and casually confesses that he's the one who put that hitman in the ground. He tells the Yakuza to go ahead and use their dirty cop buddies to confirm the hardware matches the crime scene. On top of that, the kid casually mentions he also took out the cleanup crew that was supposed to scrub the bodies and the evidence. Smelling a rat, Katajiri points an angry finger, accusing the teenager of being the real mastermind behind the dead bosses. Resting his chin on his hand, Kay rolls his eyes and asks if he'd really go through all this trouble if the girl was his target. The young heiress gives our MC a super intense, calculating look while he talks. Standing up from the table, Akari makes the call to trust the kid's wild story, which makes her bodyguard look like he's going to faint. Wasting zero time, she orders Katajiri to pull the ride around immediately so they can head back to the estate. Swallowing his pride, the guy in the suit just takes the order, and the massive gates of the mansion swing open right as the sun starts going down. Once they're inside the super fancy office, you could cut the awkward tension in the room with a knife. Katajiri is absolutely throwing a fit about letting such a sketchy wild card just walk into their stronghold. Right then, Kay pops the door open and strolls in, totally impressed by how ridiculously huge the Mafia HQ is. Walking around like he owns the place, the kid casually asks if some old vase in the upstairs hallway is the real deal. Triggered by the absolute nerve of this guy, the guard screams, demanding to know who gave him a hall pass to wander around. Ignoring the temper tantrum, our MC loudly critiques how their security setup is actually garbage and full of holes. He'd already mentally tagged every single guard at the gates and tracked the patrol routes circling the yard. Plus, the kid figured out there was literally only one guy watching the camera feeds in the security room. Stunned by the crazy accurate tactical breakdown, Katajiri starts stuttering, completely clueless as to how the kid mapped the whole place out. Looking straight at the girl, Kay drops the news that the bulletproof vest she's rocking under her clothes is basically paper against heavy rounds. The student is genuinely amazed that this intruder spotted all those tiny details after being in the house for like 5 minutes. Looking dead serious, our MC warns them again that the guys coming for them aren't your average street thugs. Meanwhile, deep down in the dark, gross city sewers, something is quietly making its move. A creepy figure slips through the shadows without making a sound, stealthily closing in on the target. Gripping a super sharp blade, the white-haired cleaner pushes forward, looking absolutely unhinged and thirsty for a fight. Back at the mansion, Kay strongly suggests that the Yakuza needs to clear every single person out of the house ASAP. Hating the plan, the bodyguard yells in protest, refusing to take marching orders from some random teenager. Cold and straight to the point, Our MC states that regular goons are just gonna be cannon fodder against the funeral flowers and will honestly just get in the way. Grabbing the kid by the jacket, Katajiri tells him to stop treating this like a video game, because real lives are on the line. Keeping her cool, Akari orders her guard to do exactly what the kid just asked. Looking like a true boss, the heiress repeats the command, calling the bodyguard by his name to make it stick. Totally annoyed, the guy in the suit lets go of our MC and decides he has to follow the boss's orders. Outside, the goons are super confused about falling back, but Katajiri just barks at them to shut up and follow the direct order. Chilling on the living room floor, the security guard announces he sent everyone packing just like he was told. Gripping his baton super tight, he warns the kid that he's only giving him a free pass to run the show for now. Relaxed and on his feet, Kay says that's awesome and casually comments on how much faith the heiress is putting in him. Closing her eyes, Akari admits she doesn't know the first thing about these funeral flowers, but she gets that normal guards would be totally useless. Looking right at the kid, the student figures the smartest play against a pro hitman is to just send in another hitman. Surprised she cracked the code, our MC asks what makes her think he's in that line of work. Completely ice cold, the girl replies that she's actually seen a real deal cleaner up close before. She explains that the look in the kid's eyes during that little alley brawl completely gave him away. Akari remembers he had those exact same eyes as that assassin, totally locked into the present moment. Zero cares about anything else. Adjusting his cap, Kay feels a little awkward realizing his cover was totally blown. Gripping her chair, the student notes that his vibe was just a tiny bit different though. She says the kid's eyes didn't have that super dead, robotic emptiness of someone who just clocks in to erase people. Thinking back, Akari admits she actually saw a crazy intense fire burning behind his glare. The girl spotted some serious, deep-rooted rage mixed with this unstoppable drive to get something done. She basically calls it a vibe that borders on total obsession. And because he actually showed that sliver of humanity, the heiress says she decided to roll the dice on him. Looking down, our MC just quietly listens to her whole breakdown. Super curious, Kay asks for the details on this mystery hitman who supposedly had the same crazy eyes he does. Akari thinks back to her dad and mentions she had a front row seat when that woman took out the boss of the Shido crew. Getting totally serious, the kid demands to know exactly what this woman looked like. The girl describes the cleaner as this super classy older lady who always had this incredibly sweet smile on her face. She remembers the lady just casually strolled up to her dad like she was popping in to say hi to an old friend. Suddenly, the flashback shows the Yakuza guards getting absolutely butchered. Without dropping that polite smile, the old lady sliced every single guard's throat without a second thought. Cutting her off, our MC raises a hand and asks if, by any chance, this lady's blade had a very specific logo on it. The image of a red dagger pops up as he asks if the weapon had a spider lily etched right into it. Confused, the student quickly asks how the heck he could possibly know a detail that obscure. With a glare full of absolute rage, the kid mentally confirms that the spider lily is definitely pulling the strings here. He can barely wrap his head around the fact that this old bat is still active in the underground after all these years. Time drags on super slowly as the squad just waits in total silence inside the room. Catching a super weird vibe, Akari breaks the silence, warning them that something feels seriously off. Laser-focused, our MC asks what exactly tipped her off that things went south. Drops of red stuff start splashing onto the wooden floor outside, while a creepy voice starts calling out for a little boy. The terrifying old cleaner casually walks into the yard and asks if her target is ready for a little chat. Looking incredibly roughed up, Katajiri is struggling just to stay on his knees, clearly in a ton of pain. Staring down the goon, the assassin comments that the house is basically set up like a giant spider web. She easily spotted the massive trail of booby traps hidden all over the creepy dark garden. Giving off major psycho vibes, the woman demands the guard spill the beans on who else is hiding in the house. Pulling out some nasty-looking golden needles, she drops a terrifying threat about how she's going to start taking him apart piece by piece. Sweating absolute buckets, the bodyguard can only groan, totally paralyzed by how scary she is. Getting right up in the wounded guy's personal space, the cleaner demands an answer. Using the distraction, Akari full-on sprints at her with a sword, while her guard screams for her to stop. Throwing everything she's got into it, the heiress goes for a massive straight slash to take the intruder out. Panting hard after the crazy dash, the girl takes a deep breath, keeping her sword raised and ready. Freaking out, Katajiri orders the boss to fall back, while she realizes he'd never just be late checking in for no reason. Out in the hall, the old lady literally blocks the giant sword using nothing but her tiny metal needles. The clash of the weapons creates this crazy intense spark, while the assassin just tanks the heavy hit like it was nothing. Super bummed that her perfect strike got blocked, the student clicks her tongue, realizing she's completely outmatched. Looking like a total sadist, the old lady points out that the girl coming to her saves a whole lot of walking. In a flash, a razor-sharp wire wraps tight around Katajira's neck, instantly drawing a lot of red. The student's eyes go wide with pure shock as she watches her bodyguards start getting choked out. Totally chill, the old assassin admits she actually remembers the young heiress pretty well. She brings up the little scaredy cat who used to peek through the closet doors back in the day. Staring at the girl, the cleaner compliments her on growing up and getting the exact same intense glare her late dad had. Glaring with pure hatred, Akari listens to the psycho lady say those eyes look absolutely delicious. Totally losing it, the assassin flashes this insane, bloodthirsty look right in the dark. She launches a crazy fast combo, forcing Akari to furiously backpedal just to keep from getting sliced. Marching forward without missing a beat, the old lady keeps up the insane pressure on the teenager. Backed into a corner with her wounded guard, the student realizes there is zero chance she's walking out of this. Suddenly, a heavy footstep booms down the wooden hallway, followed by a super annoyed sigh. Walking up totally relaxed, Kay mutters that the girl should probably start acting like someone who actually needs saving. A super dark, angry red aura starts pouring out of our MC as he watches the whole mess. Feeling that overwhelming energy, the old cleaner gets hyped, realizing there was actually a real monster hiding in the house. Ready for a real brawl, the woman drops into her stance, gripping her nasty blades. With a flick of the wrist, she chucks 3 golden needles that stick deep into the floorboards. Radiating pure destructive vibes, the assassin jumps, loading up an absolute max power death strike. Not looking scared in the slightest, the kid keeps a totally blank face even with a lethal attack coming right at him. Our MC casually strolls down the hallway, not even caring about all the dust flying around. Holding a massive curved blade, Kay walks with total purpose straight toward the enemy. Seeing the kid's terrifying aura, the heiress and the guard both gulp hard, absolutely amazed by him. Checking out the chaos in the hall, our MC stands his ground right between the psycho old lady and her targets. Instantly, the cleaner figures out he isn't some random punk, and that he actually knows some highly effective practical martial arts. As a basic rule, those fighting styles teach you to basically never play defense when the other guy has a knife. The reason is pretty straightforward when you're in a real-deal street brawl. It's physically impossible to block a sharp blade with your bare hands without risking a quick trip to the morgue from a sliced artery. So the smart play is for the fighter to purposefully drop their guard to bait out an advantage. By doing that, he tricks the enemy into going for a super obvious, direct stab at the chest or neck. Using the enemy's rushed attack against them, all he has to do is fire back with a perfect, devastating counter. Thinking about all that, the old lady sarcastically points out that knowing the textbook moves is way different than pulling them off in real life. Facing down the armed psycho, Kay just stands there looking completely wide open in the dark. Getting her dagger ready, the cleaner is 100% sure he's just waiting for her to mess up so he can counter. To play it super safe, the kid casually tosses his own baseball cap straight up into the air. Completely thrown off by the random move, the assassin's eyes go wide, having no clue what the distraction is about. In the pitch black, the only thing you can see is the terrifying, glowing red glare of the kid's eyes. Wasting absolutely zero time, our MC blasts forward with insane speed, charging right at the enemy. With a huge leap, he throws a lightning-fast downward strike trying to totally flatten the old lady. Moving like a ninja, the old lady jumps back, completely dodging the hit while the kid crashes into the floorboards. Staring at the woman, Kay looks annoyed, complaining that he really thought that little trick would catch her off guard. Amazed by the sheer disrespect, the cleaner thinks it's wild that this brat actually had the guts to swing first. But taking a closer look at the heavy attack she just dodged, she realizes something way more dangerous is going on. Standing further down the hall, the assassin realizes it's been a really long time since she had to fight someone who knows Salat. The kid had aimed his strike dead at her common fibular nerve, which is the absolute perfect way to deadleg a target. Hyped that she figured it out so fast, our MC compliments the old lady for instantly recognizing his moves. Triggered by his sarcastic tone, she admits that his whole vibe is reminding her of someone she absolutely hated. The old lady flashes back to 20 years ago, when she retired from field work to be a coach at the garden. In an old training session, a super sharp blade gets smoothly parried away with just a flick of the wrist. The younger version of the assassin was lecturing that the move wasn't about using muscle, but about catching the right flow. Showing how it's done, she taught the rookie to just let the enemy's weapon glide right through that invisible current. Watching the lesson up close, the kid just stared at the teacher's footwork without saying a single word. Totally out of patience, the coach warns him she's just going to keep tossing him around since talking obviously isn't working. Pinned down with a blade right at his throat, the young rookie casually drops that he completely figured out the trick to the move. The coach keeps the kid totally trapped, holding the sharp edge right where it counts. Rocking a completely psycho look, the rookie excitedly begs the old lady to teach him the next move right that second. That day, the woman realized with total dread that she was looking at an absolute freak who could copy anything just by watching. Literally the very next morning, she quit her teaching gig and went back to the streets, reclaiming her title as a funeral flower. Staring at her signature spider lily blade, she knew she had to seriously level up her real-world combat skills. Right under the full moon, the cleaner swore she would perfect her ultimate dance of death no matter what it took. Snapping back to now, the old lady charges in fast, gripping her weapon and looking absolutely thirsty for a body count. She rushes our MC, kicking up a massive cloud of dust all the way down the wooden hallway. Playing it cool, Kay drops a massive bomb, casually mentioning that honestly he didn't hate his old coach all that much. Hit by a truck with that super familiar comment, the cleaner freezes for a split second, stopping her own charge dead in its tracks. The kid throws her own old advice right back at her, reminding her about breaking the enemy's spirit before you stab them in the heart. Hearing her own exact words from decades ago, the assassin's eyes bug out, looking like she just saw a ghost. Completely shook, she mutters that there is literally zero chance this is actually happening. Right at that exact moment, our MC rushes in looking insanely mad, flooding the room with a terrifying red energy. In a crazy heavy clash, the cleaner uses everything she's got to block the kid's absolute sledgehammer of an attack. Thanks to one tiny mistake, Kay ends up taking a super fast slice to the chest, sending a spray of red into the air. Watching from the sidelines, Akari and her guard totally tense up, while the old lady secretly celebrates scoring a hit. Because of the insane force of the block, one of the blades actually goes flying and hits the deck, totally coated in red. Gripping the handle of her red piece tight, the cleaner gets ready to keep the bloodbath rolling. To dodge a nasty swing from our MC, the old lady bends backwards in a Matrix-level dodge that honestly shouldn't be physically possible. Super dialed into the fight, the kid watches the enemy's freakish movements like a hawk. Pulling off a crazy backflip, the woman screams, launching herself backward to create a massive gap. She just keeps spinning and flipping away until she's at a completely safe distance from the kid. Sounding super confident, Kay praises the enemy's crazy reflexes, announcing that the legendary Ivy clearly hasn't forgotten how to throw down. All that insane, bendy movement is only possible because she was literally born with super loose joints and stretchy tendons. That freakish level of flexibility was always the absolute trademark of the cleaner, known as Ivy in the underworld. Sticking the landing on the wooden floor, the old lady plants her feet, keeping her blade totally ready for round 2. Standing all the way across the hall, she finally puts the pieces together and realizes she's looking right at her dead guildmate, Nightshade. Looking cocky as ever, the kid just casually confirms his old gamer tag and asks what she's gonna do about it. The veteran cleaner just stands there without saying a word, trying to download the absolute insanity she just heard. Throwing all logic out the window, she tries to wrap her head around how her dead student could be piloting this random teenager's body. But her killer instincts are basically screaming at her, telling her to ignore all the weird sci-fi stuff and just focus on the brawl. Staring down the absolute unit of a kid covered in that glowing red aura, she decides to go for a wildly risky play. Totally losing it, the old lady figures she's finally found the white whale she's been hunting her whole life. Stomping the wooden floorboards super hard, the cleaner uses the bounce to launch her ultimate attack. A massive wave of purple energy blows up around her as she brags that her signature move is way more lethal than it used to be. Covered in that crazy heavy aura, the woman demands the kid watch her absolute masterpiece of a dance up close. Without hesitating for even a microsecond, she charges straight ahead, slicing through the hallway air like an absolute maniac. In a move that defies all logic, Kay steps up and literally swats the enemy's blade away with his bare hands. The woman's crazy killer energy totally swallows the kid as she kicks off Ivy's legendary ultimate finisher, the Dance of the End. Watching that terrifying light show, Akari and the bodyguards start totally freaking out, having no idea what kind of broken cheat code move that is. Cool under pressure, our MC yells at his team not to get tricked by the blade's fancy fake-out trails. Locking his eyes purely on the actual tip of the weapon, Kay uses his unprotected fists to literally punch away every single deadly slash of the combo. Mind blown by the absolute blur of the fight, the peanut gallery is just standing there with their jaws on the floor watching the kid parry everything by hand. From a distance, the heiress watches the insane brawl and is totally amazed by the defense, but she can tell things are still super sketchy. Smacking away every lightning-fast strike in the middle of the room, our MC uses his glowing fists to keep the lethal blade off him. Annoyed that he's struggling, Kay complains in his head that he would never let this old bat even scratch him if he was still playing on his original save file. All of a sudden, the kid's eyes bug out when he notices a totally dangerous shift right in the middle of the combo. Knowing exactly how this enemy operates, he figures out the red spider lilies are laced with poison, and of course Shed pulls some cheap garbage like this. Flashing a totally wicked smirk, the cleaner tells him to relax, casually dropping that the toxin only paralyses your muscles. A visual of the deadly flower pops up, showing that the nasty poison is already starting to lag the kid's movements. Jumping on the massive opening, the assassin rushes in with insane rage, screaming that she's the one who's gonna finally unplug him. Rocked by the poison, the kid feels his muscles giving out fast and ends up stumbling backward, barely keeping his balance. Looking completely unhinged, the old lady spots the massive opening and announces that his timer is officially up. After dumping the entire furious combo of her famous dance, the enemy gets ready to hit the final delete button. Charging up a massive wave of purple energy, the woman lines up one single, devastating strike meant to end it with zero chance of missing. Launching forward with everything she's got, she aims right for the paralyzed kid to put a hole straight through his chest. A massive, crushing impact blasts our MC dead on, sending a huge shockwave tearing through the mansion's hallway. Looking completely psychotic and super smug, the old cleaner starts celebrating her big W. But in an absolute flash of a counter, Kay uses the enemy's own momentum to perfectly deflect the lethal blade straight up into the air. Totally mind-blown by the impossible Uno reverse card, the old lady's eyes practically pop out of her head and her jaw hits the floor. Staring down the totally frozen hitman, our MC flashes his glowing red eyes, proving he's still the biggest monster in the room. Absolutely shook by the crazy turnaround, the old cleaner starts choking, feeling this massive, crushing red energy completely swallow her. In one savage motion, our MC grabs the enemy by the throat and squeezes hard, sending a spray of red into the air. Not giving her a single frame to block, Kay literally chokeslams the woman right into the mansion's wooden floor, kicking up a massive cloud of dust. The cleaner coughs up red on the floorboards, completely unable to process the kid's ridiculous speed and raw power. Thanks to the absolute earthquake of a slam, the poison blade drops out of her hand and bounces on the ground. Moving like lightning, the kid snatches the toxic weapon right out of the air before it even lands. Without hesitating for even a fraction of a second, he takes the assassin's own piece and buries it straight into her chest. The woman's eyes go wide as red starts dripping from her mouth, realizing her game is officially over. Looking down at the wrecked woman, our MC coldly points out that it looks like she still hasn't leveled up enough to beat him. Rocking a super dark glare, the kid promises he'll run it back with his old coach once they bump into each other in the underworld. Hearing that, the cleaner totally accepts the L and tells him she'll be waiting for him by the river of the departed. Looking at the body, he mutters that blooming in bright red is honestly a pretty cool way to go out. In the background, Akari and her guard just stare at the aftermath of the absolute boss fight, completely shook by what just went down. Suddenly, our MC completely loses his footing, and his legs start turning to jelly right in the middle of the room. Sweating buckets, he lets out a massive sigh, really feeling the burnout from the fight and the nasty poison wrecking his system. Freaking out over the kid, Katajiri asks if he's alright and if he caught a dose of the old lady's toxic blade. Looking totally wiped, Kay admits he's definitely not okay and that he basically just paused the poison by using a crazy breathing trick. This tactical breathing hack is actually a real thing special ops guys use to keep their cool when things go totally sideways. By doing that, the kid slowed down his own blood flow to stall the poison, but the guard offers to call in a shady underground dock to fix him up. Adjusting his cap, our MC waves off the help and casually explains that anybody who plays with poison always carries the cure in their pocket. Looting the enemy's body, he scores the antidote but instantly spots something wild, making the suit ask what's up. Holding up a pocket watch that looks exactly like the one from his last gig, the kid announces he just found the next breadcrumb. Staring at the shiny gold piece, he knows for a fact that he's gonna crack the code behind this whole mess. The heiress realizes just how bad things are and asks out loud who the heck wants her gone and what they could possibly gain from it. A little while later, the night is super quiet across the massive mob estate, totally disconnected from the crazy bloodbath earlier. Inside the bedroom, the bodyguard is still super on edge, trying to catch his breath after the insane showdown. There's a first aid kit popped open on the floor, with bandages and meds just thrown everywhere. The student is super carefully patching up her totally loyal guard, wrapping his busted arm with gauze. Tying off the bandage with a lot of focus, the girl breathes a massive sigh of relief and says that should hold him together for now. Looking incredibly stressed, Katajiri asks if the boss is hurting anywhere and literally begs for them to just drop this whole crazy war. The guard thinks back to the absolute meat grinder in the hallway and admits he finally gets just how insanely dangerous this all is. Replaying those broken physics moves in his head, the guy states straight up that the kid is definitely not a normal human being. That level of absolute destruction is in a completely different league compared to the basic turf wars the Yakuza usually deal with. Squeezing his injured fist, the guy in the suit is super frustrated, wishing he had the muscle to actually keep the young boss safe. Because of that, he warns her that the nightmare isn't over and promises hell never let the old boss's daughter get taken out by those absolute freaks. On his knees, the guard begs her to just walk away from this shady underground life, swearing hell run the gang's business all by himself. Listening to the sad speech, the girl hears her guard plead for her to go hide out somewhere super safe until the heat completely dies down. Deep in thought, Akari actually considers the escape route, admitting to herself that running away is technically the smartest play. Out of nowhere, our MC walks into the room holding a laptop, making Katajiri jump and ask when the heck he sneaked in. Totally ignoring the spooked guard, the kid just stares at both of them with a dead serious, unreadable poker face. Catching the heavy vibe, the heiress turns her head, fully ready to hear whatever the hitman has to say. Skipping the small talk, Kay drops the bomb that she isn't just some innocent schoolgirl, reminding her that she's got Boss Shido's blood running in her veins. He breaks it down that the Mafia's violent destiny has been stamped on her since day one, whether she likes it or not. That dark legacy is basically a totally cursed debuff that's gonna follow her to the edge of the map, no matter where she tries to camp. Furious that the kid keeps sticking his nose in, the guard yells, telling him to stop acting like he knows the first thing about their boss's life. Ignoring the screaming, our MC casually lifts the laptop and announces he just scored the name of the guy who put out the hit. That massive plot twist leaves the bodyguard completely speechless, while the student just processes the crazy intel. The kid mentions he beamed the data from the pocket watch over to his hacker buddy to run it ASAP. Ice cold, he asks if they don't want to know the name of the absolute scumbag who hired the funeral flowers to take out her dad. Standing her ground in the middle of the room, the heiress orders the kid to stop playing games and just drop the name already. Following the boss's orders, our MC spins the laptop around, flashing the files right on the glowing screen. The doc shows a mugshot of the Shido crew's top executive, and Kay bets they are super familiar with this guy Masaya Kuroki. The guard goes into total shock and yells out, completely convinced this has to be some sick, twisted prank. With a super dark look, the student remembers that her dad actually took the rat under his wing, and the guy climbed the ranks insanely fast. The file highlights that this exec has an absolutely terrifying talent for running the syndicate's dirty money operations. The guy's main hustle was managing massive underground casinos and running illegal, no-rules fight clubs. Raking in absolute mountains of dirty cash for the crew, it was only a matter of time before he became a major shot caller. Looking at the guy's ego, Kay figures that waiting in line for a promotion just wasn't fast enough for him. Our MC explains that the snake teamed up with heavy hitters like Ivy and Dahlia, who run with that terrifying group called the Garden. Setting up that deadly alliance, Kuroki orchestrated the total wipeout of the old boss and all the veteran shot callers in the Yakuza. Just to make sure there were zero loose ends on his speedrun to the top, he also put a bounty on the boss's daughter. The traitor's absolute endgame is to steal the mafia throne for himself and rule the entire country's underground with an iron fist. As a kickoff bonus for the coup, the Shido crew would basically become a puppet guild answering directly to the Garden. With his eyes glowing super bright, Kay announces that his only goal here is to absolutely ruin the Assassin Guild's master plan. Putting the laptop down, the kid looks right at the student and firmly asks what her next move is gonna be. Poking the bear, our MC straight up asks the mafia princess if she's still planning to rage quit and run like a coward. Stuck at this crazy crossroads, the girl puts her hands on the floor and slowly starts standing up without making a sound. Looking out toward the window, Akari tells the kid to stop talking so much trash. Totally terrified of what she's about to do, Katajiri yells out, begging the girl not to get dragged into this war. Thanking her guard for having her back, she explains that dropping her head and running away without knowing who offed her parents would be absolutely pathetic. Radiating this massive, boss-level blue aura, the heiress declares that the Shido family doesn't do the whole coward's way out thing. Seeing the boss's absolute iron will, the bodyguard grinds his teeth, super emotional as he feels the weight of her choice. Hyped about her answer, the reincarnated kid notices she finally locked in her decision. Overflowing with confidence, the student admits that honestly she never even thought about running away from the fight. Looking out over her massive, super expensive estate, she admits she knows all this cash wasn't exactly made legally. Akari figures she's not totally innocent since her dad raised her in this life, and she'll take the heat for it later, but she flat out refuses to hand the crew over to a rat. Our MC flashes a tiny, super satisfied smirk seeing the girl's absolute unbreakable resolve. Walking toward the door, the kid asks her to just call him K, since she didn't actually know his name yet. He clarifies that it isn't about being sketchy, but points out that in their line of work, the less you know, the better. Putting her hand out, the heiress officially hires him to act as her personal muscle against Kuroki. She announces that his paycheck for the gig will be exactly what he wanted, completely burning the garden to the ground. Super confident, the student promises she'll dump every single resource the Shido crew has to help him pull it off. Hearing the deal, the kid looks super interested and totally down for the team-up. Kei thinks about the massive intel network spread all over the underground and the absolute mountain of cash the gang is sitting on. Plus, he considers the crazy dangerous connections the mafia has tied up in politics and massive corporations. Laser-focused, the kid figures there is literally no better backup out there to help him totally wreck his enemies. With a solid handshake, our MC locks in the deal and makes the alliance official. The night just rolls on quietly over the city's massive, glowing skyscrapers. In a super fancy safe house, Kuroki is throwing back a drink, super annoyed that the old assassin hasn't pinged him back yet. Just then, a kid rocking a hood strolls into the room, casually asking the exec what he thinks is going wrong. This sketchy dude is Campanula, yet another one of the rival guild's absolute top-tier cleaners. Keeping a totally blank poker face, he listens to his partner whine while looking bored out of his mind. The exec keeps pressing the issue, wanting to know if his buddy has heard any chatter about the old lady vanishing. Not caring in the slightest, the kid sarcastically replies that it's not his job to play babysitter for some senior citizen. Campanula jokes that the old lady is probably just throwing a tantrum because they made her go after a high schooler, pointing out how massive her ego is. Out of nowhere, a piece of glass shatters across the room, completely jump-scaring the blonde kid mid-sentence. Furious, Kuroki tells the kid to shut up, and figures the woman probably bought the farm in some nasty sewer, just like Dahlia. The guy in the suit complains that the group gets hyped up as the baddest hitman on the planet, but it all just seems like fake news. He tries to keep going with his angry rant, but gets completely shut down in the blink of an eye. Faster than you can blink, the assassin teleports right behind the guy, pinning him to the wall and making him choke from the pain. Sweating bullets, the traitor is totally stunned, having absolutely no idea when the kid even moved. With his eyes glowing in the dark, the kid warns him not to get it twisted. They are only playing nice because the guild said so. Pressing a blade right to the guy's neck, the blonde makes it super clear that the funeral flowers aren't anyone's personal pawns. Freaking out, Kuroki instantly begs for mercy while the kid pulls the blade away, telling him to watch his mouth. With the death threat out of the way, the assassin turns around and casually strolls across the room. Chilling in the middle of the hideout, the blonde mutters that he's totally fine with how the whole script is playing out. Still panting hard from almost getting his throat sliced, the exec agrees that one random schoolgirl staying alive won't actually ruin their master plan. He flexes a bit, bragging that they've already successfully deleted all the old, annoying mafia veterans. Staring out at the lit-up city, the traitor declares that the gang is officially his and he's gonna use it to totally run the underground. Flashing an incredibly wicked smile, the young assassin adds that all of this is going down in the name of the Great Garden. 2 days fly by and night hits the super-packed streets. Inside a crazy expensive underground casino, VIPs are yelling and having a blast, throwing down chips at all the tables. The cash is flowing everywhere as the high rollers risk absolute fortunes trying to multiply their stash in this illegal joint. Smug billionaires hanging out with models are just flexing their massive bank accounts all over the gold-plated room. Suddenly, a mystery woman walks into the lobby looking like absolute royalty, getting the total VIP treatment from the staff. Akari rolls in looking absolutely stunning in a white outfit, flanked closely by Kei and Katajiri, who are fully suited up. Keeping his cool, the kid escorts the heiress while keeping a super close eye on everything moving in the room. Staring dead at the huge doors of the VIP lounge, the young guy figures it's officially time for the Rat's big show to kick off. Giving off a super dangerous vibe, our MC decides this is step 1 to totally erasing the competition. The slot machines are going crazy with flashing lights, while the squad's massive brainplay gets put into action. A dealer at the casino shuffles the deck like an absolute pro, getting the next round ready at the main table. All around, a bunch of rich guys keep knocking back drinks and having fun, totally clueless about the massive threat that just walked in. The student struts through the room with her head held high, basically breaking necks everywhere she goes. A bunch of the guests notice the girl and start whispering, totally obsessed with how amazing her fit looks. One of the players thinks it's super weird to see someone that young in the club and starts racking his brain to figure out where he's seen her before. Sweating like crazy, Katajiri whispers, super stressed, that the trio is pulling way too much aggro right in the middle of enemy territory. With a totally sarcastic smirk, Kei promises that all this chaos is going exactly according to his master plan. A quick flashback shows the family's old training dojo during their super tense strategy meeting. Back then, the bodyguard heard our MC's crazy plan and absolutely lost his mind over how risky it was. Slamming his hand on the wooden table, the guard chewed the kid out, calling the whole idea a complete suicide mission. He totally refused to let the heiress march right into the enemy base, but Kei pointed out it was the only way to save the crew. Getting loud, the guy in the suit fired back that if the goal was just to pop the rat, the kid should just solo the mission. Ice cold, our MC asked what the guy honestly thought would happen to the mafia after the hit was done. Kei broke it down. Taking out the boss would just kick off a massive civil war that would tear the whole gang apart from the inside. Realizing the kid's tactical breakdown was 100% spot on, the guard swallowed hard, knowing there was no plan B. Our MC kept the strategy rolling, asking what the vibe would be if the one true heir personally took the traitor's head off. Looking dead serious, the student figured that pulling a stunt like that would show everybody exactly who the real boss is. Kei guaranteed that if she stepped up to the front lines like a boss, the mafia's entire army would follow her to the end without blinking. Taking total charge, the girl cut the chat short and ordered her guard to call up a super high-end tailor right now. Overflowing with confidence, she demanded they rush order an absolutely flawless dress for the biggest night of her life. Seeing his partner lock in like an absolute unit, the kid flashed an approving smirk, really respecting how gutsy she was. Snapping back to the casino, the huge doors to the VIP area are still locked down tight with heavy security. Inside, one of the goons speedwalks over to the exec and whispers the bad news about the intruders. The trader's eyes go wide, totally shocked to hear that the young heiress is just casually walking around downstairs. Clicking his tongue in pure rage, the guy in the suit grips his glass tight, super annoyed that the girl hasn't caught a game over yet. Chilling on the couch, the blonde hitman thinks the whole thing is hilarious and asks if he should just go downstairs and permanently log her off right now. The exec instantly shoots the offer down, warning that turning the place into a crime scene would totally ruin his precious casino's vibe. Trying not to lose his mind, he orders the goons to just treat the girl like a regular VIP for the time being. Meanwhile, the vibe out on the fancy casino floor is getting insanely tense and super awkward. Talking trash to the door guards, Katajiri jokes that the coward Kuroki didn't even have the guts to show his face. Scanning the room, Kei figures they gotta bait the target out into the open first. With that game plan locked in, the heiress struts through the casino looking like she owns the place. She casually announces that dropping some cash on a few games sounds like a pretty fun idea. The student makes a beeline straight for one of the super exclusive blackjack tables. The trio rolls right up to the main betting area, instantly making everyone stop and stare. Moving fast, the dealer steps in front of the girl, super politely apologizing for the holdup. The guy professionally explains that the buy-in for this specific table is a cool 1 million yen. Without wasting a single second, our MC absolutely slams a heavy briefcase down on the gaming table. The hit pops the case open, showing everyone that it is literally stuffed to the brim with super high-value chips. In practically zero time, massive towers of chips are stacked up right in front of them. The girl casually replies that she doesn't mind at all, since playing for pennies really isn't her style. Completely floored by the absolute mountain of cash, the dealer apologizes again and lets her take a seat. Setting up the game, the guy shuffles the deck with some seriously flashy pro moves. He slides the first card onto the felt, wishing the new player good luck. An hour flies by in this crazy intense vibe, and the random players watching start sweating from pure anxiety. The dealer is looking ridiculously stressed as he watches how the game is playing out. Meanwhile, Akari is sitting there like a statue, totally zeroed in on her hand. The girl's chip stack has grown to a ridiculous size, and a massive crowd has circled up just to watch the show. Sweating bullets, the casino guy announces that all bets are officially locked. The student just stares at the table, waiting to see how this final hand is gonna wrap up. The dealer is absolutely panicking, breathing super heavy and looking like he's about to pass out. With his hands shaking like crazy, he flips the cards, showing everyone the dealer's score. Pulling one last card from the shoe, the guy basically prays to whatever is listening that he can clutch this round. He flips the final card, looking absolutely terrified at the result. The pressure is so insane that the pro dealer's hands literally just give out. The house completely busts, officially confirming that the casino just took a massive L. Looking totally devastated, the dealer announces the guest wins, and the whole crowd absolutely loses their minds over her insane win streak. The bodyguard figures she has to be running some kind of cheat, while Kay just watches the whole thing with a dark smirk. The thing is, blackjack isn't just pure RNG, there's that legendary hack called card counting. This totally broken strat calculates the table's odds by tracking every single card that's already been played. Guys who actually master this math glitch can clean out massive casinos in Vegas for absolute millions. But what the kid is pulling off right now is way beyond any gambling myth. Running on absolute supercomputer brain power, the hitman memorizes every single card the microsecond it hits the felt. With every new card that drops, his brain crunches the data in literally milliseconds. He instantly figures out the absolute perfect play and taps out tiny, sneaky signals on his watch. The glare off the watch face beams the exact answer straight to his partner using sneaky light codes. For a guy who casually memorizes crazy escape routes and insane moving target patterns, plus constantly doing the math on ammo counts and wind direction right in the middle of a chaotic warzone, tracking a deck of cards is a joke. Our MC basically considers this ultra-fast brain math to be a super chill walk in the park. Back at the table, the heiress casually shoves an absolute mountain of chips straight into the middle. Totally confident, she announces the party isn't over yet and tells the dealer to deal the next hand. The casino guy completely freezes in pure terror, staring down that absolutely unhinged bet. His legs are literally shaking because he knows if he bleeds any more cash, the bosses are gonna make him disappear. Out of nowhere, a super sarcastic voice rings out across the room, complaining that the princess really should have texted before she crashed the party. Casually turning her head, the girl recognizes the guy and drops a comment about how it's been a minute since they last hung out. Rolling up with his goons, Kuroki jokes that he would've rolled out the red carpet if he knew she was stopping by. The rat flashes a super fake smile, desperately trying to look like he's still the boss in his own club. Totally over the bad acting, the heiress tells the suit to seriously spare her the cheap drama. The exec looks away and immediately notices the absolute fortune in chips stacked on the table. Doing a slow clap, he hypes up the girl's insane RNG and offers to cash her out right this second if she just leaves. Pulling a massive stack of bills from his jacket, he offers her a little thanks for playing bonus. Trying to be funny, the guy tells her to take the cash and go buy some cute clothes with her friends. Completely ignoring the bribe, the young girl fires back, joking that the rat hiding in her dad's castle sure got a lot fatter. That absolute roast hits the traitor right in the ego, and he can't even hide the massive vein popping out of his forehead. Giving him a deadly glare, Akari asks if he's having fun playing Pretend King while hiding behind his little florist buddies. That direct shout-out to the Assassin Guild makes the exec's face instantly go completely dark with pure rage. All the random players around them look super confused, having absolutely no idea what kind of inside joke that was. Totally losing his cool, Kuroki drops a dead serious threat, warning the princess to stop playing games with her life. Hearing the death threat, the student just agrees with him and stands up from the table looking incredibly classy. Bursting with boss energy, she officially calls it quits, announcing she is totally bored of playing simple card games. Keeping up that terrifying vibe, the girl decides she'd rather check out the club's absolute most famous attraction. The traitor goes dead silent, letting the absolute insanity of what she just suggested sink in. Squinting hard, the exec figures out she's talking about the legendary Crimson Cage. This completely illegal, no-rules deathmatch arena is hidden right underneath the fancy casino floor. Kuroki breaks down the rules. They each toss a fighter into the ring and place their own massive bets. Without blinking, Akari bets absolutely everything she inherited from her late dad, plus her own life. To match that, she demands the guy bet the pink slip to this entire massive casino on the outcome. The absolute madness of the bet terrifies everyone listening, because this bloody brawl is basically going to decide who runs the mafia. Feeling the heat, the guy in the suit starts sweating, knowing his rep will be completely ruined if he backs down now. Catching him hesitating, the student flashes a sarcastic smirk and asks if he's really gonna chicken out. That insult does the trick, and the traitor grinds his teeth super hard, swallowing his rage. Totally backed into a corner, the guy stares the girl down and says this little game actually sounds pretty fun. Getting right up in the heiress's face, the exec accepts the challenge, calling her an annoying little brat. During this whole crazy standoff, our MC just stays completely quiet, watching his partner's back. Seeing the bad guy walk right into their massive trap, Kay flashes a super dark smile, looking 100% satisfied. The giant doors to the casino's VIP area are still locked tight, just waiting for the absolute bloodbath to start. Inside, the blonde hitman is watching the whole thing go down on massive monitors, chilling with his feet up on the desk. The security feeds are broadcasting a live stream of Kuroki having his stare-down with Akari in the middle of the room. Kay is rocking a dead serious look, tracking every single tiny movement the enemy makes. Watching the drama unfold on the screens, Campanula flashes a nasty smile, thinking this whole setup is actually super entertaining. Finally, the double doors of the lounge swing wide open, revealing the entrance to the underground fight pit. A super dark, creepy hallway is waiting to lead the fighters straight down to the illegal ring. The crowd in the stands is going absolutely feral, screaming their heads off as the bloody main event kicks off. The spotlights aggressively snap on, lighting up the closed-off glass battle arena. Sounding incredibly hyped, the announcer welcomes all the degenerates to the infamous Crimson Cage. Gripping the mic, he yells that they managed to book a super special, last-minute brawl to completely rock the house tonight. The hype man points at the ring and guarantees that the lucky folks in the stands picked the absolute best night to show up. Wasting zero time, he introduces the absolute unit of a fighter chilling in the red corner. A bald dude who is built like a literal tank gets ready, smashing his fists together looking completely unhinged. The announcer screams at the top of his lungs, introducing the undefeated champ that everybody knows as the Smasher Takeshi Kinju. On the opposite side, Kei casually strolls right into the center of the ring, fully dressed in his suit. The hype man reveals that the challenger literally has 0 stats on the board, and is just some mystery guy going by Kei. Up in the stands, the gamblers are practically crying laughing, roasting the skinny kid in the suit and betting he won't last 60 seconds. The announcer hypes up the champ again, reminding everyone he's a full-contact karate master who has sent every single challenger straight to the ICU. Freaking out over the insane size difference, Katajiri asks the heiress if the kid can actually pull off a W here. He admits he's seen the kid's crazy strength firsthand, but he's still absolutely terrified about how this fight is gonna go. Sighing with his eyes closed, our MC quietly mutters to himself that he's really not just some average MMA fighter. The ref lays down the ground rules. Absolutely no weapons allowed, but literally any other kind of dirty hit is completely fair game. Staring down the kid in the suit, the massive bruiser flashes a super creepy, ultra-confident smile. Kei just stands there in his starting pose, not showing a single drop of emotion while staring at that absolute mountain of muscle. With everything locked and loaded, the announcer throws his hand up and screams for them to start the brawl. Instantly, the giant charges like a freight train, throwing an absolute nuke of a punch straight at the kid's face. The kid just tilts his head super fast, letting the massive strike completely whiff right past him. Annoyed that he missed, Kinju roars, asking what the heck is wrong with the guy in the suit. He starts spamming a crazy flurry of punches, while yelling at the punk for not even throwing a single counter. The high rollers go absolutely crazy, screaming for the big guy to flatten the kid and beat him until it's game over. Right in the middle of the cage, the giant's rapid-fire attacks just keep pushing the kid back without giving him a microsecond to breathe. Watching the whole thing from the VIP box with Akari, Kuroki takes a drag of his smoke and totally disagrees with the crowd's hot takes. The rat analyzes the fight like a total sociopath and notices the kid is purposely slipping just outside the hitboxes. Looking like an absolute pro, Kei is using his arms to perfectly parry the champ's heavy strikes away. Kuroki mutters, genuinely impressed, that the punk literally hasn't moved an inch from where he started. Blowing out smoke, he turns to the student and asks if she thinks this little magic trick is actually entertaining. The mafia princess just listens to the enemy's garbage trash talk while keeping a completely deadpan expression. The exec lectures the princess, claiming that standard gym martial arts are a total joke compared to how they fight in the underground. Down in the ring, our MC just keeps swatting away the bald guy's endless barrage of punches. Kuroki breaks it down. In a cage with 0 rules, you don't win by using some fake, flashy techniques. Betting everything on his tank of a fighter, he declares that the only thing that matters down here is pure, unhinged violence. Suddenly, the guy in the suit reaches over and totally invades the girl's personal space by grabbing her hand. Laughing like a creep, the rat warns her that once his guy wins, he's gonna have to teach her some serious manners. Flashing a totally psycho look, the guy claims that a disobedient pet needs to be disciplined. Kuroki just keeps holding the student's hand, laughing at how pathetic the whole situation is. Out of nowhere, the girl mutters in an absolute ice-cold tone, calling this whole villain's speech a complete joke. With her eyes completely filled with rage, Akari says it makes her sick that he's trying to leash her when he's literally just a lapdog for the garden. That massive roast lands critical damage, and the rat's smug smile completely vanishes, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated fury. He instantly drops the girl's hand and viciously crushes his cigarette into the ashtray. Boiling over from the insult, the exec screams at his fighter to stop playing around and finish it. The giant jumps a little hearing his boss absolutely lose it, totally confused as to why there's suddenly a rush. Seizing that tiny distraction, Kei casually steps forward, planting his foot super solid on the arena floor. The bruiser suddenly starts gasping for air, feeling this massive, random wave of exhaustion hit him out of nowhere. Right in front of him, the kid in the suit doesn't have a scratch on him and is just staring back with a super chill smile. The champ is completely mind-blown as to why he's the only one running out of stamina, considering he's the one who's been attacking the whole time. Roasting the big guy for gassing out, our MC sarcastically asks if the giant can't even lift a finger anymore. Kinja's eyes practically pop out of his skull when he realizes the opponent basically teleported right into his face. Moving at insane speed, K lands an absolutely devastating strike dead center on the giant's chest. Thanks to the ridiculous impact, the mountain of muscle gets launched backward, completely losing his footing. The crash kicks up a huge cloud of dust, and the entire crowd just stares at the massive body slammed on the floor. The gamblers' jaws hit the floor and they are completely frozen, totally unable to process the glitch they just saw. One of the billionaires swallows hard, sweating bullets after watching the undefeated champ get one shot. The ref rushes over to the huge guy knocked out on the floor and starts screaming the countdown in a total panic. Casually cracking his neck, K thinks to himself that step one to taking down a monster is to just snap its fangs off. Suddenly, both the announcer and our MC catch a really messed up sound coming from the knocked out fighter. Kinju starts twitching on the ground in a super creepy way, making these awful weird noises. The kid in the suit backs up a few steps, watching the freak show unfold and staying totally on guard. Just then, a kid in a hood basically spawns out of nowhere, viciously stomping right on the fallen giant's back. The ref totally panics at the random interference, having zero clue how this guy bypassed security. Casually strolling through the ring, Campanula completely ignores the staff and just radiates this insanely dark, lethal energy. The casino workers stare at the absolute chaos, completely paralyzed and having no idea what to do next. Without blinking, the blonde hitman goes full psycho, mercilessly attacking every single suit that gets near him. He throws an absolutely crushing kick right into a guard's face, instantly sending him to sleep. Flooded with pure killer intent, the hitman literally steps on the knocked-out bodies, getting ready to turn the place into a real slaughterhouse. With the guards snoring on the floor, Kay jokes that this casino has a really terrible way of treating its VIP guests. Staring the blonde kid down, he immediately demands to know what the heck the intruder thinks he's doing crashing the party. Campanula announces he just put the guards in sleep mode, and casually asks for all the credit for pulling the plug on this little show. The young assassin takes a step forward, completely ready for the absolute brawl that's about to go down. He excuses the interruption by saying there is zero chance they can let some random amateurs ruin the perfect script they wrote. Totally confused by the weird flex, our MC just repeats the word script, trying to figure out what the kid's deal is. The blonde spells it out. If the guy in the suit actually wins this fight, all the grinding they've done up to this point gets completely flushed down the toilet. Standing their ground in the middle of the cage, the two of them lock eyes, completely ready to go all out. Overflowing with ego, the hitman announces he's gonna do whatever it takes to make sure this match gets completely retconned. He turns his head and yells up to Kuroki, asking if the rat is cool with him rewriting the rules. Watching from the VIP box, the exec flashes a super smug smile and says he's totally fine letting his partner handle the trash. Wasting no time, the hooded kid drops a super sarcastic apology as he launches himself forward at insane speed. Using that crazy momentum, he throws a lethal kick aimed directly at the opponent's neck. Our MC perfectly dodges the kill shot, instantly recognizing the move was designed to snap his carotid artery. Checking out the suit's dodging form, Campanula asks what kind of martial arts build he's running. The fighting style in question is Salat, an absolutely lethal old-school martial art that comes straight out of Southeast Asia. Known for being completely broken in actual street fights, there are literally hundreds of different patches and versions of it all over the world. The styles range from super strict basics that only focus on close quarters hand-to-hand brawls, all the way up to insanely violent variants that spec heavily into knife combat and snapping people's joints. Laser focused on his enemy, our MC keeps his eyes totally locked, just waiting to read the next attack pattern. He drops into his fighting stance, cranking up the pressure and flooding the entire cage with an intense vibe. The blonde kid checks out the opponent's guard, studying every single detail like he's scanning for weak points. In an absolute burst of speed, K throws a lightning-fast jab, but it gets effortlessly blocked. Campanula dashes backward, moving so ridiculously fast that he literally leaves an afterimage behind. Without missing a beat, the hitman fires back with a heavy strike, catching the guy in the suit totally off guard. Our MC ends up taking a glancing blow to the face, and a tiny line of red starts dripping down his cheek. Katagiri watches the hit in absolute shock, remembering that the kid tanked the giant's attacks like nothing, but just got pushed back by a guy using only one hand. From the VIP box, Akari watches the fight go down, keeping a completely unreadable poker face and staying dead silent. Running the numbers on the enemy's stats, Kay realizes that this kid's reaction time and raw damage output are straight-up hacking human limits. Wiping the red off the corner of his mouth, he stares down the blonde and confirms a major detail about his opponent. Cutting to the chase, the guy in the suit asks if this kid is also on the roster for the infamous funeral flowers. The hitman flashes a massive smile and jokes that the server gossip really travels fast around here. Dropping the mystery act, he officially introduces himself as Campanula, the terrifying flower of gratitude. Putting his hands together in a totally fake, sarcastic bow, the cleaner says thanks for giving him a fun little side quest after a super boring main mission. Crouched on the arena floor, our MC lets out a low chuckle, thinking this whole setup is actually wildly funny. He wipes his scraped face and promises that the pleasure of this little meetup is 100% all his. With his eyes glowing a super dangerous color, Kay announces that since the opponent is an official guild member, he can completely crush him without holding anything back. The reincarnated kid's brain does a speedrun through all the brutal boss fights he had against the other disposable pawns from that exact same organization. Seeing the opponent suddenly radiate pure menace, Kuroki starts sweating bullets, feeling the tension in the room hit the ceiling. Up in the box, the mafia heiress and her loyal guard are glued to the fight, catching every single word of the trash talk. Standing up super casually, our MC honestly admits that he really doesn't want to get tagged by that palm strike ever again. On the other side, the blonde stays completely relaxed, rocking a smile that just screams arrogance. Cracking his neck, the guy in the suit mentally plans that step 1 of this boss fight has to be downloading the enemy's attack patterns. The entire arena goes dead silent, and the assassin sadistically points out that the crowd lost their voice super fast. Taunting his opponent, he asks if the amateur actor has already run out of moves, warning that if the suit doesn't swing first, then he's gonna just walk over there and permanently hit the delete button on this problem himself. Our MC flinches at the absolute explosion of movement, blown away by the kid's totally broken speed stat. In a literal fraction of a second, the cleaner throws an insanely heavy punch aimed dead at the opponent's face. Showing off some crazy agility, Kay manages to dodge the nuke, spinning his body out of the danger zone. Dialing his focus up to max, the guy in the suit tries to calculate the enemy's next combo. The blonde unleashes an absolute hurricane of heavy punches, and our MC seriously wonders what the heck is wrong with these hits. Slipping through the storm of attacks, he realizes that even though they're a crazy fast, the actual hitboxes are ridiculously easy to read. Dodging a super aggressive kick, the kid also notices that the sheer wind pressure coming off the attacks is insane. Comparing it to the old lady's flawless technique, he figures out that the blonde's style is literally just unga-bunga raw damage with zero finesse. Campanula doesn't let up for a second and charges in again, throwing another massive punch with everything he's got. Seeing a huge gap in the spam attack, the kid dodges and absolutely nails the opponent's arm with a heavy counter. The hooded cleaner's eyes bug out, totally shocked that his combo just got broken that easily. With a perfect parry locked in, Kay gets ready to completely flip the momentum right in the middle of the cage. Watching from the sidelines, Katajiri gets super hyped, cheering that the mafia's muscle finally landed a clean hit. Jumping back fast, Campanula checks out the damage and realizes the suit just perfectly sniped his radial nerve. Smiling because he figured out the trick, the hitman guesses that's exactly how the giant from earlier got his arm totally disabled. The move he used looks a lot like gunting, a technique that totally wrecks limbs by attacking them like you're chopping them between 2 blades. Super hyped, the blonde notices the suit used his wrist bone to deliver a surgical strike and asks if that's the legendary death method. Our MC flashes a sarcastic smirk, asking if the enemy actually knows his lore and wondering if that old style is suddenly trending again. This lethal art is basically a forbidden assassination school from Indonesia that's supposed to be completely dead and buried. Sounding super confident, Kay points out that the build obviously isn't meta right now, considering the last guy who used it got deleted 11 years ago. Totally ignoring the lore drop, Campanula screams and charges the opponent again with absolute max power. The young hitman throws a high-speed punch, desperately trying to get the upper hand back in the brawl. Making it look like an absolute joke, our MC parries the attack using the back of his hand, completely redirecting the hit. The hooded kid is absolutely mind-blown seeing his heavy strike get cancelled with zero effort. But instead of getting scared, the blonde flashes a totally psycho smile, calling the opponent interesting and demanding to see his ultimate moves. Kay clicks his tongue totally over it and goes back to blocking the endless spam that just keeps coming. The cleaner cranks the aggro up to 11, throwing a devastating combo that actually forces the suit to back up. Even while getting backed into a corner by the hurricane of punches, our MC holds his ground, flawlessly dodging everything like a boss. Incredibly salty about the whole thing, Campanula screams that this is totally broken and has no idea how the target keeps perfectly dodging. To read the attacks, our MC is literally studying the enemy's startup animations by watching his center of gravity and his eyes. With that insane read, he can perfectly predict the next move before the frames even start. If he didn't have that skill, there'd be zero chance of surviving a fight where punches are flying in literal fractions of a second. But the blonde hitman angrily realizes that the guy in the suit is only dodging after he actually sees the punches coming. Totally floored, the villain figures out that this guy's reaction time is straight up breaking the game's physics. Jumping on an opening, K dodges a furious charge, doing a super agile backflip to get some space. While he's literally still stuck in the air, the kid is shocked to see a totally blurred attack flying right at him. Wasting zero time, Campanula throws a totally devastating palm strike at his totally defenseless opponent. Taking the massive hit, our MC gets launched halfway across the map, skidding hard across the arena floor. Freaking out at the crazy damage, Katajiri screams his buddy's name, terrified that he just caught a game over. Watching from the VIP box, the Mafia heiress is completely stunned by how broken the enemy's damage output is. Right then, the traitor exec reaches his arm out to literally block the girl's view of the fight. Dripping with arrogance, Kuroki brags that this is what real violence looks like and guarantees he's taking the W tonight. Laughing like a total supervillain, the rat taunts her, saying that in the underground, the winner literally takes every single piece of loot. Eating dirt in the ring, our MC just glares up at the VIP box and mutters that it takes some serious nerve to act like such a massive coward. The traitor threatens the young girl, telling her that when this is all over, he's gonna collect a toll way bigger than what they bet. Completely ignoring the trash talk, the kid in the suit calmly stands back up, planting his feet firmly on the arena floor. Not showing a single ounce of pain, he drops right back into his fighting stance, staring the enemy down in the middle of the cage. Dusting his suit off, K runs the numbers on that last trade and announces he just figured out the enemy's broken passive skill. Totally chill, the reincarnated kid just mumbles to himself, finally getting the trick behind all that insane power. On the other side, the hooded hitman flashes a super cocky smirk, just waiting to hear what the opponent figured out. Super hyped, Campanula throws his arms up and celebrates, saying the suit is 100% right to call him a special edition. The hitman brags that his nervous system got completely overpowered thanks to some crazy, illegal stem cell mods. That biohack basically made his axons super thick, turning his nerves practically bulletproof against any kind of debuff. Looking closely, our MC realizes that the kid's glitch-level reaction speed all comes from those modded nerves. The kid explains that regular humans physically cap out at a 0.2-second reaction time, no matter how much they grind. Flexing incredibly hard, the villain brags that his stats let him react in 0.002 seconds, basically moving like a cat. Thanks to that ridiculously broken biological buff, the blonde's perception of time is basically running in slow motion. To the hitman, it feels like the whole entire server is just lagging, moving frame by frame right in front of him. Putting it all together, K figures that the crushing palm strike also runs on that same weird proprioception hack. Up in the box, the exec and the heiress just listen to this insane biology lesson in total silence. Resting his chin on his hands, the traitor looks down at the ring, thinking all this nerd talk is actually pretty fascinating. Down in the cage, the blonde claims he can literally feel every single muscle fiber in his body, letting him channel all his stats into one single pixel. Sarcastically trying to remember the name of the Chinese technique Fa Jin, he brags that using it is as easy as breathing for him. The hitman totally roasts his guildmates, saying they waste their time grinding while staying hard-capped by normal human limits. To this biohacked kid, watching those old veterans try so hard is honestly just a really sad joke. Agreeing with the enemy's logic, Kay smiles and randomly asks if having those freaky eyes doesn't give him a massive headache in real life. That totally out-of-nowhere question about his daily routine completely catches the young hitman off guard. The guy in the suit wonders how he even watches movies, since standard frame rates must look like a laggy, stuttering mess to him. Instantly dropping the smile, the villain gets super salty and admits that the visual glitch is actually incredibly annoying. Looking totally unbothered in the middle of the ring, our MC declares that if this is the enemy's entire moveset, the tutorial is officially over. Cracking his neck to the side, the reincarnated kid agrees that it's finally time to pull the plug on this match. Flooded with a terrifying, monstrous red aura, the kid promises to give the opponent an absolute blockbuster of a finale. Taking the bait, Campanula flares up his own massive purple energy, warning that he can't wait to watch the final cutscene. The heavy tension absolutely suffocates the underground casino as these two massive boss characters stare each other down, ready for the finish line. Glued to the glass cage, the VIPs up top literally don't even blink, just waiting for someone to make the first move. Staring a hole through the target, Kay knows for a fact that the blonde's reaction speed is completely broken and unfair. He's fully aware that throwing any kind of standard heavy attack is just gonna get instantly parried by the enemy's speed hack. Out of options, the guy in the suit figures there is literally only one crazy strat that can score a W here. The perfect play is to somehow land a lethal counterattack on the exact same frame the enemy throws his strike. But the hooded villain just flashes a totally psycho smile, fully believing he's already completely downloaded the opponent's game plan. The hitman figures our MC got way too cocky after managing to land that one lucky nerve block earlier. With a totally manic look, Campanula secretly admits he actually let that punch connect on purpose just to give the guy some fake hope. Drowning in his own ego, the blonde is 100% sure he has the frames to easily parry even the reincarnated kid's fastest counter. In an absolute blur, he charges super aggressively, spamming heavy strikes right at the guy in the suit's chest. Jump scared by the sheer speed, the kid in the suit just closes his eyes, bracing himself to tank the heavy damage. Thinking this is literally too easy, the assassin is sure that whatever desperate move the opponent tries is already factored into his flawless script. Taking slow, dramatic steps around the ring, the villain is absolutely savoring the idea of completely crushing this weak little target's final bit of hope. Lining up the ultimate finisher, the hooded hitman gets ready to dump his most broken ultimate attack right at the target. Breathing heavy, our MC drops his head, looking totally trapped against this absolute biological glitch of a boss. Rushing in at absolute max speed, the blonde screams, daring the enemy to try and counter it while guaranteeing it's game over. Totally ice cold, Kay looks up, watching the enemy charge blindly right into his lethal trap. Out of nowhere, the hitman's blue eyes practically pop out of his head in pure confusion when he realizes the guy in the suit literally hasn't moved a pixel. Frozen in midair, Campanula realizes that from this ridiculously close range, it's physically impossible for the target to launch a counter. Totally convinced he just scored a flawless victory, the guild kid thinks to himself that the match is officially wrapped. But using a completely invisible micro-movement, our MC just slides his hitbox slightly to the side, completely dodging the lethal punch. A totally weird popping sound echoes through the cage, and the villain lets out a desperate groan, knowing something just went horribly wrong. The truth is, the reincarnated kid already silently fired off the absolute perfect counter, totally bypassing the enemy's broken reflexes. The catch is that the young guy's freakish reaction speed only works against attacks he can actually see coming on his screen. During that massive palm strike earlier that sent him flying, Kay used that tiny window of airtime to completely set up the play. In that paused fraction of a second, the kid in the suit stealthily positioned his hand without triggering any aggro from the target. With absolutely flawless surgical precision, the tip of his finger lightly tapped dead center on the hitman's forehead. That creepy little poke actually applied an ancient Indonesian assassination hack called the poison needle. The trick is to blast the trigeminal nerve in the face with max power, which causes the victim's senses to completely lag out. Totally frozen in the middle of the arena, Campanula's eyes go wide as he feels his own controller disconnect, realizing he just took a massive. Radiating an insanely dark, boss-level aura, our MC mocks him, asking what the enemy thought of the finale's production value. Literally a second later, the blonde assassin's body is violently launched backward by an absolutely invisible force. With zero defense left, the hooded kid goes flying completely out of control through the air. The impact is so ridiculously heavy that he violently skids all the way across the arena floor. Feeling absolutely brutalized, the hitman coughs up a ton of red while trying to desperately figure out what just hit him. Because the launch was so incredibly strong, Campanula slams his back straight into the arena's glass wall, completely shattering the whole thing. Watching the insanity from the top rope, the Mafia heiress and Katagiri are absolutely shook by the completely impossible plot twist. Eating dirt in the smoke, the villain stutters like crazy, desperate to know what cheat code the opponent just used. Standing perfectly chill in the middle of the ring, K.I. Scold drops the fact that he barely even touched the guy. The crazy part is, the kid actually wasn't capping at all, because he literally never threw a single direct attack the whole time. In that exact millisecond, the reincarnated kid locked his legs and pelvis, instantly flexing every single muscle in his spine and back at the same time. Holding that completely rigid stance, he threw his shoulders and arms forward, basically turning himself into a human-reinforced concrete pillar. The physics of it work exactly like when a powerlifter jerks a massive bar over their head and locks their entire body up. For that one tiny frame, the athlete turns into a solid support beam that can hold insane weight, and the kid in the suit pulled off the exact same mechanic. By planting his feet flat on the arena floor, Kay turned into an absolute, immovable iron stake driven deep into the ground and literally just stood there. Basically, our MC tanked all that massive attack damage using the very tip of the invisible stake he built out of his own stance. Thanks to standard game physics, that trapped energy literally had nowhere else to go, so it just completely bounced straight back into the blonde's body. The lethal result was basically like Campanula threw himself at max speed straight into a spear planted in the ground. That absolutely broken technique is the ultimate peak of Chinese martial arts, famous for literally stealing the enemy's damage output to counter them. After that absolutely brutal collision, the kid in the suit just stands there watching the totally wrecked opponent in the corner. Pinned against the busted glass, the hitman finally puts the pieces together and realizes the enemy literally just parried his own ultimate attack back at his face. The assassin's brain processes the whole fight, figuring out that all that boring nerd talk about nerves was actually just a massive distraction. Being totally honest, Kay confirms he was absolutely just stalling the villain to run down the clock until the poison debuff hit maximum stacks. Taking the total L, the hooded kid actually compliments the big brain strat and admits he never thought someone would totally derail his perfect script. Bleeding a lot, he casually mentions that every cleaner ends up hitting the game over screen eventually anyway. Staring up at the club's ceiling, the kid knows that running around with the Campanula tag meant his permadeath was always coming sooner or later. With that, the hitman coughs up another big splash of red and actually gives the opponent a totally genuine thank you. The villain confesses that he always thought the whole underground scene was just incredibly boring and totally unplayable. Watching fake flower petals drop around the cage, he mutters that thanks to the guy in the suit, the game actually felt pretty fun right at the end. With that one final, super peaceful thought, the biohacked assassin totally gives out to the massive damage and logs off for good right there on the floor. Turning his back on the fallen player, the reincarnated kid tells the punk to catch as many Z's as he possibly can. Out of absolutely nowhere, a desperate scream rips through the casino calling out for the traitor exec, instantly pinging Kay's radar. Up on the second floor, Katajiri is completely terrified, staring at a scene that shouldn't even be possible. Using the absolute chaos of the boss fight as cover, Kuroki pulled a sneaky flank and violently grabbed the mafia heiress from behind. Sweating buckets of pure panic, the absolute coward points a piece directly at Akari's head right in front of the whole lobby. Seeing his teammate get taken hostage, our MC explodes with an aura of absolute unhinged rage, completely ready to kick off a real bloodbath.